Hello, I'm Dr. Emma Hitt-Nichols, and this is an AMA Manual Style Guide tip that I hope will be useful to medical writers and also our clients at Nascent Medical. Please do share this with your colleagues if you find it useful. So today I'm going to describe the information provided in the AMA Manual of Style that covers how to deal with figures. This information is located in section 1, which is preparing an article for publication, and it's in subsection 4, which is visual presentation of data, and then in there's section 4.2, which is information about figures. Of course, for all the finer details about this topic, please do visit the AMA Manual of Style. Okay, so here is what the manual says about figures. First of all, this section is broken out into several categories, and these are as follows. I'll just go through them really quickly. We have statistical graphs, diagrams, maps, illustrations, photographs and clinical imaging, components of figures, titles, legends, and labels, placement of figures in the text, figures reproduced or adapted from other sources, and guidelines for preparing and submitting figures, and finally, consent for identifiable patients. The first few sections drill quite deeply into the various types of graphs, diagrams, maps, and illustrations, and it's definitely worth checking this out if you're interested. But in this discussion, I'll focus in on the components of figures, which is section 4.2.6, and also the title, legends, and labels section, which is 4.2.7. So according to the Manual of Style, clear display of data or information is the most important aspect of any figure, much like it is for any part of medical writing. And they go to a little bit of detail for scales for graphs, describing the range of values, axis scales, and axis labels. An important point is that the range of values on the axes should be slightly greater than the range of values being plotted so that the entire data set can appear within the area defined. And ideally, the range should include 0 on both axes if 0 is a possible value for what's being displayed. And then if there's a break needed in the axes because of the extent of the range of data, then you can signify a missing portion of the range with paired diagonal lines. Now, when talking about axis scales, simple multiples of the quantities plotted should be included, and the values on the axis scale should be centered on their respective tick marks. Both linear and logarithmic scales can be used, and for linear scales, the axis must appear linear with equal intervals and spacing between tick marks. Axes should be labeled with the type of data plotted and the unit of measure used. Symbols, line styles, colors, and shading characteristics can be directly labeled or included in a key. This information can also be included in a figure legend. The form of labeling or the key used should be consistent throughout figures in a single article, and it's also important to use 2 easily distinguished colors or shades for different data. Often an unfilled circle will depict placebo and a filled circle will depict study drug, for example, which is clear and makes sense. The guide also points out that shading is preferable to cross-hatching and other types of patterns to differentiate different groups. And then often error bars are included, and these should be drawn to encompass the entire range of variability, not just one direction. The error bars should always be defined either in the legend or on the plot itself. In most cases, figures should not be presented in a 3-dimensional way, which is an option for some word processing programs, and it's not helpful. It's very confusing to look at data that way. Next is titles, legends, and labels, which is section 4.2.7. So for titles, the figure titles in most journals are published directly under the figure and will be numbered consecutively unless only one figure is included in the article, and then it will just be called figure. I always remember for myself that tables begins with T and therefore their title goes on top, whereas the figure title does not begin with T, and so the figure title goes beneath the figure. Just a little mnemonic to help remember that. Figure titles should be written as a clause or phrase identifying the specific topic of the figure, and each major word of 4 letters or more of a title should be capitalized, which would follow the same rules as for article titles. Titles of figures should not begin with a phrase identifying the type of figure. So you would not say a photograph of XYZ, you would simply say XYZ. Although a description of the type of figure may be required in certain circumstances to avoid confusion and to add clarity, so you might say multi-slice CT angiography or something, whatever is needed. Okay, legends. For figure legends, they should be written below or next to the figure in sentence format. The legend contains information that describes the figure, and it shouldn't be longer than 40 words in general, but longer legends may be used if a more detailed explanation is required for a given figure. Figure legends should also contain expansions of abbreviations and footnotes for information that is too much to include in the figure itself. As far as labels goes, axis labels should be capitalized, similar to a column heading in a table, and sentence style capitalization should be used for non-axis labels within the figure itself, which are easier to read. Well, that's it for now, and of course there's so much more that is in the AMA manual, so definitely check that out. If you need medical writing help, please check out our website at nascentmc.com, and if you're interested in getting into medical writing, please visit 6weekcourse.com. That's numeral 6weekcourse.com.